my name is Emily and this is my channel, The Red-Headed Ravenclaw. Today I'm going to be starting my reviews of the volumes of My Hero Academia. If you have watched other videos on my channel, you know that I'm absolutely obsessed with this manga and the anime, and I just wanted to take the time to make separate reviews for them so that I can talk into detail, talk about spoilers. And because in my reviews on my monthly wrap-ups, I don't like to go too much into detail because, you know, I don't want to spoil things for people who haven't read it, who might be interested in reading them. So I am going to just individually review everything, and I wrote down silly notes about the first one that I'm starting with today, and then I'm sure it will continue to be the same each time. So obviously we're going to be starting with Volume 1, My Hero Academia, Izuku Midoriya Origin, and I will explain to you guys what this is about in just a second, and go through all of my notes about just the silly stuff that I love and things that I don't love so much, and you know how it goes. But first I just wanted to show you my little Bakugo sticker. I hope you can see it. Let me hold it up here. I have a Bakugo sticker, and then I have some of the gang. We've got Deku, Bakugo, Uraraka, Mina, Denki, Todoroki, Froppy. We've got Tokoyami, Ida, Jiro, Momo, and Kirishima. And I've got lots of other My Hero Academia stickers elsewhere, but those ones just happen to fit in my other stickers. And so I guess now I will start talking about this series, since I have been rambling about stickers for a long time. So My Hero Academia is about this world where 80% of the population has quirks, which are special abilities, and our main character, Izuku Midoriya, who's this cute little green bean here, he was born without a quirk, but his ultimate goal in life is to become a hero, just like his idol, All Might, who is the #1 hero, and he's the strongest and most powerful hero there is in this world. And so in a strange occurrence of events, Izuku gets to inherit All Might's power and get a quirk and go to this academy for people who are training to become heroes. And it goes from there. We learn about other people's quirks, we learn about all of these wonderful things. So let me just get into my notes about this particular volume. So the first thing that I noticed was that the beginning of this volume is super rushed. We go from Bakugo beating up Deku, and we don't really know why, except for that he's defending another kid from being bullied, to a villain attack. Then we go to back to school, where Bakugo is just being a major jerk about Deku wanting to go to UA, which is the high school for heroes. And then we go back to the villain fight, and not a whole lot is explained. I think the anime does it slightly better, but it's still like very rushed, and I think it takes some time for things to be explained a little bit better, and not everything in this first volume does get explained ever. And so it's just kind of like you have to stick with it through the end of the volume to get a little bit more pacing. I super love, like right from the get-go, how dramatically all of Bakugo's facial expressions are drawn. He's just like, I think it's funny that his facial expressions come off as very explosive, just like his quirk, because his quirk is explosions. He has like nitroglycerin in his sweat, and so he's able to like form explosions really easily. And his facial expressions are always like maniacal looking and just very over the top, just like a smirk stretched all the way across his face, and his eyes get ginormous and they're always pointy. Like a lot of Bakugo's features are very pointed, and I think that says a lot about his character. And then I went back and wrote that he's being a major jerk to Izuku for literally no reason. Like Deku, which is Izuku's nickname that Bakugo has for him, he just has this goal to become a hero just like everybody else, and it's not his fault that he was born without a quirk, but Bakugo is just relentless in hammering on Deku for that, and it's really hard to read at first. Just like he threatens Deku to commit suicide and all this stuff. It's terrible, and I can see why a lot of people don't like Bakugo from the beginning of this manga, because he is aggressively terrible. When we get the flashbacks to when Midoriya is going back and seeing All Might on the computer for the first time and seeing him saving so many people, and then we go to his doctor's appointment where he finds out that he doesn't have a quirk. His drawing of him as a small child is so precious. I wrote in my notes, small Midoriya is precious. So basically what I just said, his facial expressions and movements and actions when he is young are so precious. And when he gets upset for not having a quirk, it is heartbreaking, because his eyes well up with tears and he just is crushed. And as a reader and watching the anime too, I was like, this poor child, like all he wants to do is be a hero, and he was born without a quirk. How is this going to happen for him? And thankfully we get to learn about like what's going to happen and how he gets to become a hero very quickly, but it's just heartbreaking. The next note I wrote is that being attacked by a slime monster is probably the worst thing in the world. As somebody who is mildly germophobic, would be awful. Just like the way that monster is attacking them is by like going into their every orifice, like slime or mud or whatever it is going to their noses and their mouths and their ears, and just like consuming them from the like outside to the inside, and just like choking them to death basically. And when Midoriya gets attacked, it's like definitely scary, but then when Bakugo gets attacked, it's like the drawings that are very graphic, and just like imagining that slime or mud or whatever just like choking you from the inside is just like, ugh, just awful. It struck me as very odd that All Might was being so standoffish at first, because as somebody who's watched all 3 seasons of the anime that are out, and I've read up through volume 8 of the manga, he's so warm and inviting later on, but at the beginning he's very like aggressive towards being like, okay, don't have time for you, I have to do other things. And I know he's like trying to hide his true form, but he's just like, man, I was kind of like thrown back to remember that he was so like, okay, I can't talk to you, you're never gonna be a hero, bye. And I was just like, dang, like that's not cool. But he makes a turnaround, so it's all okay. Then is when we get to Bakugo getting attacked by the slime monster, and I really reflected on how self-sacrificing Deku is, because that's what like in turn makes him the predominant candidate for being a hero, because he is always self-sacrificing, and he will always be throughout the series. He never takes a chance to think about himself in terms of like, oh, if I do this I might get hurt. He's always just like jumps the gun, save whoever the person is, and whatever happens. Like the better option is to save someone else, you know, and not worry about me, which is just like, I don't know, I don't think many people can do that. And obviously like that's the point that makes him, you know, that's what makes him a great and promising hero. And then we turn around, and after All Might comes in and saves the day and gets Bakugo out of the hold of the slime monster, Bakugo is instantly a jerk to Midoriya again, and he's just like, you couldn't save me, I could have done it myself, blah 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 blah. And he's just being the worst. And like, there's literally no reason. I know he's just being a jealous turd, and that's all there is to it. One of my favorite things about Midoriya as a main character is that he cries all the time, and I just love that this manga series shows boys who are not afraid to share their emotions, and not all of them are not afraid to. There are definitely some of the characters who do not want to show their emotions and want to keep it inside, but Midoriya is literally always crying, and I'm so thankful. And in my notes I wrote that boys showing emotion equals chef's kiss, so that is my true feelings about just like letting these teenage boys be emotional about all of these hardships that they're going through. And Midoriya goes through the ringer, and that's just a sheer fact, and he deserves to cry a lot. My favorite part of the manga itself are the character profiles that are in between sections. Like, I love the street clothes drawings, and like the little facts, like their birthdays and their favorite things, and why the author decided to draw that character, where they originated from, all that kind of stuff. Those are my favorite things because they're very funny, and it kind of breaks the fourth wall. And in cartoons and like manga, anime, or whatever, I absolutely love it when there are fourth wall breaks. I don't like it in like real life TV situations and things like that, like things like The Office. I can't stand that, but in cartoons I absolutely love it. So I love when these character profiles are placed throughout the book, and we get to learn a little bit more information about the different characters, and just like, you know, the little tiny inklings about their origins. The next thing I wrote about is like, Deku works so hard during that 10 months where he's given to strengthen up his body in order to inherit All Might's power. And he's 15 years old, and he's having to go through school, and he's having to do these really intense workouts, and he wants to be a hero so badly that he puts himself through more workouts and more rigorous, like strict eating schedules and things like that. And he just works himself past the point of exhaustion. But then also, like, through his workouts, he goes above and beyond to clean up this beach. And I wrote down that we love an environmentalist. And it's just like, it's so interesting to see how strong-willed Midoriya is. And then one of my favorite scenes that like gets called back to later on in the series is the eat this scene, when All Might presents one of his hairs to Midoriya, and that's how he's going to inherit the power, All for One. And this particular scene in the first volume isn't inherently funny, but when you get the callback later on, and I'm sure I'll bring it up whenever that happens in the whichever volume it is it is one of the funniest things, and I have a sticker of it, and it's just, I love it so much. One of the other funny things that I mentioned is when Deku is going to UA for the entrance exam, and he meets Uraraka for the first time, and he like trips, and she saves him with her quirk. And he freaks out, and after they like interact, he's like, I talked to a girl, and then there's a little asterisk, which is just like another fourth wall break, and it says he didn't actually talk. And it just made me crack up because, again, it's a fourth wall break, and I just love that the author is like bashing his own characters, and it's just something that I really love in media like this. Something that I really love, like, not even necessarily from the manga or the anime, because we don't get a super ton of their character, but it's mostly, honestly, from watching so much TikTok and like just engulfing myself in My Hero Academia cosplay and stuff on TikTok. I really love Present Mike's character, and I was really sad when I was flipping back through this manga to take these notes that he doesn't get any response from the kids during the entrance exam when he's announcing what the test is going to be and all this stuff. And like his quirk is to be loud and exciting, and they're just like flat. Like these kids are like, I don't care, just let's get on with this. And it made me a little bit sad because I love him so much, just based on like basically like a fan fiction version of himself. Like I know he's a fun character in the show too later, or in the manga as well, but it was just really funny to me that nobody responded, and I was just kind of like, oh, poor guy. This is the time when I will announce that I am obsessed with Tenya Ida, and he is basically me. And whenever he's first introduced, he's so mean, and I forgot about it. And he's just like overanalyzing and just like, you know, whatever he's gonna do to get to the goal and be on top is gonna be what he's gonna do. And he's just like so like not snarky, but like harsh and just direct. And look at me doing his hand motion. But I just love him. Later on, he gets better. And like I said, I relate to his character a lot, just being like obsessed with rules and just like wanting to do what is right all the time. And that can be a fatal flaw in, like, you know, just when you abide by the rules too much and don't question them, it can lead to your downfall. And so, you know, I resonate with Ida's character a lot, and I forgot about his aggressive entrance as being a harsh, like, I don't want to say teacher's pet, but essentially a teacher's pet. One thing that I reflected on just looking at the art style is that everyone's scared faces are drawn so funny. And there's even a point later on I took a note of where Deku is so shocked by when Aizawa deceives them and nobody's gonna get expelled, that Horikoshi, the author, actually like has to write his name by his drawing because he's like almost not resemblant of himself. And I just love that when, like I mentioned earlier about Bakugo, everybody's scared faces are just very over the top, just like eyeballs bugging out, mouths, I keep doing this because I'm trying to emphasize that their mouths are super wide or very open, and just like, it's fun. Like something I didn't realize when I started reading this series, this is the first manga series I've ever read, is that they really have to they really have to utilize the facial expressions to get across what they're talking about, so that the reader doesn't have to try to infer things and without using so much text. And so I love in this one the drawings, I love the facial expressions, the posture, the body, like everybody's stances. It's just, again, chef's kiss. The next thing I realized is that the first time that Deku shatters his bones, he is like freaking out, which arguably, you know, fair reaction. But then later on in the series, by the time we get to the sports festival, he's just like, you know, flicking him off like, yeah, it's okay, recovery girl will fix me up, like, no big deal. Like, yeah, it hurts, but they don't reflect as much on the pain unless it's like full body breakage, which happens a lot. But he is obviously in incredible pain in this first time, but he's just like falling through the air, like vomiting, and like his arm is just like flapping alongside him. And it was just funny to see how later in the series, like I was saying, he will just like break his bones anytime. You just like walk up to him and ask him to punch you, and he'll be like, sure, and just like break a finger or two. And then Ida cannot deal with Deku's sacrifices, because everybody else, when Uraraka is about to get hurt from this ultimate bad guy that doesn't make any points during the entrance exam. Everybody else is running away while Deku is running towards it, and he's going to save Uraraka. And after Ida realizes what happened, the faces that are drawn for him, he's just seriously like, what the heck? Why? Like, if I was not thinking so hard about making points, then I would have done the same thing. And he's just really struggling with the fact that he himself was not self-sacrificing, and he let somebody else do that. And the facial expressions were just wonderful. I keep talking about the facial expressions, but that's something I just pay attention to a lot. And I think a lot of it is because I studied sociology and psychology in college, and so I am always looking at people's facial expressions and trying to just determine what they're thinking and things like that. So it's fun to see them drawn so dramatically. I put bless up for Recovery Girl for being a boss and saving everybody all the time, and especially just, you know, smooching Deku up with love and fixing all of his broken bones. And then bless up for Uraraka for being the best friend by going and talking to the judges and trying to get Deku into UA after he didn't get any points for the battle thing. And they're just so sweet, so bless them. I put yay Aizawa, but at first he's mean in my notes. He is probably my favorite character in this series, and we just get like an inkling of him from this first book. Like, if you hadn't seen anything else of Aizawa at first, you would think he is like a terrifying, like, horrible dude, because he threatens to expel whoever doesn't get the most points in the tests or whatever they're doing on the first day of class. And he's just like very blunt and like trying to convince him that it's going to be extremely difficult to become a hero. And he obviously changes later on in the series, and I just love him. I love that he's really like a softie for all these kids, and he's just got a lot to him that's not really explained. And again, a lot of it is TikTok, because I just see a lot of attractive people cosplay him and just like want to marry him, and yeah, that's essentially it. But he right, well, in a few points after that, I just put Aizawa is beautiful, that is all. Because some of his art in this volume is so beautiful. Like, when he just has this, I don't know, like his presence on the page is so commanding, and just like, I don't know, he can just take a situation and flip it around really quick because of his quirk. And, you know, when you see him as just like a droopy, like bedraggled 30-year-old, it's like, but then he'll like whip out his quirk and his hair goes up and his capture weapon is flying all around, and you're just like, oh, he did that. And it's just, I'll talk more about Aizawa later. I put Kachan is #shook that Deku has a quirk, and he thinks Deku has been hiding it from him for all these years, but obviously that's not the case. But Deku is not allowed to say that he inherited his quirk from All Might, and so Kachan is just going to flip his lid for a long, long time about all of these situations, and what can you do about it? Like, that's how things are. Bless Aizawa for his capture weapon and using it on Kachan to prevent him from beating the heck out of Midoriya when he finds out that he has a quirk. And just the pictures of him like with this capture weapon like across one eye and like dragging him back are really, really funny, and I love those scenes. Let's see. I super love that Recovery Girl has a Pez dispenser of Kamui Woods from like the very first scene, like the fight with the first villain that's in there, and she's just like here, have some Pez. And I just love subtle details like that, and just like drawing in. There's some other parts in the beginning where they're talking about the tests that they're going to be, the entrance exam, and the little doodles are from Mario characters and other video game things, and I just love those little hints like that. Also, another point about President Mike is that he is doing his darndest to teach those kids English. And yeah, they're a hero school, but they also need important normal classes, because this isn't Harry Potter, and we know in Harry Potter that they didn't have normal people classes, and so those kids don't know how to do math. They don't know, they probably don't know how to do taxes and things like that, which like also same in the real world, but like, you know what I mean. So these kids need their normal classes. I'm really glad that that's a point. And President Mike is doing his best to teach them English, and they just don't appreciate him, and they don't deserve him. And my final point was, yay, costumes at the end, because we just get a little glimpse about everybody's costumes, and we don't really get too much into it, but I just love to see what everybody designed for themselves, and how even at 15 they really know their quirks and know what's going to help them. And of course their costumes will get more advanced as they grow, but I just love the idea that they got to work with, their own abilities and design costumes that are going to enhance them. And then we'll get on later with what Midoriya's costume is, because he didn't know that he had he didn't know yet that he was going to have a quirk when he designed his costume, like in his head, and then really fast he had to design something and come together with it. So it's very cute and pure. But anyways, that is my final thoughts on the first volume. I think it is a really good introduction, and a lot happens, and people who talk to me about this series and are like complaining about how fast-paced it is, it does slow down, and you just have to like invest a little bit of time and get past the first, I don't know, 1 or 2 volumes, and then things start to slow down, I feel like, and get explained a little bit better. But I love this series so much, and I'm excited to continue doing these little, like, talk about fun things. I called it a review at the beginning, but honestly it's just me talking about my favorite things and talking about stuff like that I love about it. And so yeah, I think I gave this first volume 4 stars when I was rating it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it was a really great start. And I was very intimidated to read manga when I picked this up. And if you don't know, if you haven't watched my other videos, I watched the anime first. Not all of it. I watched like the first 2 seasons before I started reading the manga. But I watched that first, and I honestly, I would not normally do that. Like, I like to read books before I watch movies and stuff like that. But I honestly really like the way that I've done this. And I think that I'm going to read up until the point where season 3 is in the manga before season 4 comes out, and then watch season 4 and then go back and read the rest of the volumes of the manga. But I'm so excited for the series to continue, and I have a lot of catching up to do, but I'm very excited about it. And I want to be reading them all the time, but at the same time, I don't want my content to run out, and I don't want to not have any of it to read. And of course I could go back, and I have, originally when I watched the anime, I watched it in the dubbed version, but now I'm slowly going back and watching the sub version, because I want to keep getting the content, but also I don't know, there's not new content yet, so I have to just go back and relive the pure wonderfulness of it. But anyways, that's enough rambling about this first volume, and I will talk to you guys later about my other thoughts on the next however many volumes. And this will probably be a really long series on my channel, but anywho, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.